All right, so we're going to talk about section 6-8, but we're just going to take a little tiny piece out of it and talk about just trig inverses and their domain so that we can figure out how to solve expressions, or evaluate expressions saying things like inverse cosine of a particular number. So I apologize for not having my web camera working, but it's not communicating with Screencast-O-Matic. Okay, so we're going to start with looking at cosine of x. And so I just want to do a quick reminder before we start. When we go around counterclockwise the coordinate plane, we start at 0, and then this one's at pi over 2, this is at pi, this is at 3 pi over 2, and then we're back to 2 pi. So when we talk about being in quadrant 1, we're talking about being between 0 and pi over 2. In quadrant 2, we're between pi over 2 and pi, etc., etc. So if we take a look at graphing cosine of x, remember it takes 4 dashes to be able to graph it. So the end of the first quadrant is pi over 2, and then the second quadrant is pi, end of the third quadrant is 3 pi over 2, and the end of the fourth quadrant is 2 pi. And then we can do the mirror image on the left-hand side. So this is negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and negative 2 pi. And the maximum is 1 and the minimum is negative 1. So if I'm going a little too fast, go ahead and pause the video to fill in those blanks. So then we should remember that cosine begins at a maximum. And so the maximum is 1, and then we dig a really big hole, and then we climb out of the really big hole. And so it would look something like this. Okay, so if we continue that backwards, we would dig another big hole and then climb out of it, and that would look something like this. Okay, it doesn't look perfect, but we get the idea. So when we take the inverse, we always switch the x and the y value. So when I do that, I get x is equal to cosine of y. So if I solve for y, I have to take the inverse cosine of both sides, and that would leave y by itself, and then that would mean that the left-hand side is inverse cosine of x. So this is the inverse of this function here. And so what we have to do is switch the x and the y in our graph. So coming over here, that means that what is x here becomes y here, and what's y here becomes x here. So up here, this is 2 pi, then I would have 3 pi over 2, and then I have pi, and then I have pi over 2. And if I keep going, this is negative pi over 2, this is negative pi, this is negative 3 pi over 2, and negative 2 pi. And so this is negative 1, and this is positive 1. Okay, so I'm going to take this value of 2 pi comma 1, and I'm going to switch the x and the y. So that becomes 1 comma 2 pi. And then 3 pi over 2 comma 0 becomes 0 comma 3 pi over 2. Pi comma negative 1 becomes negative 1 comma pi. Pi over 2 comma 0 becomes 0 comma pi over 2. And then 0 comma 1 becomes 1 comma 0. So you can see that it's doing this zigzag format. So if I keep that going, just using the pattern, or you could go back to the graph and switch the x's and the y's, we would get points that look like this. Okay. And so if you're wondering, if I graphed in the line y equals x and I reflected with respect to that line, that's how I would get this graph. Now, you might notice if I said, what is the inverse sine of 1/2? So like 1/2 is somewhere around here. Inverse cosine. Do you see that there are infinitely many answers? Because this is going to continue on below, and this is going to continue on above. So when it comes to our calculator wants only one answer, okay? So what we have to do is limit the quadrants that the graph is in so that we can have it be a function and our calculator can give us a single answer. So one thing I missed at the beginning of your notes, we've kind of talked about it. It says, how do we find the inverse of a function? We switch the x and the y values, and then we solve for y. And so when it comes to restricting the domain so that we have a good inverse cosine, Quadrant 1 is always going to be in the trig domain, no matter what function we're talking about. Quadrant 3 is never going to be in the trig domain. And we want the inverses to be functions. On top of that, and write this down, we want the inverses to be continuous. So we don't want to have to hop around in order to graph the inverse function. So we want it to be continuous. So coming back here, this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, quadrant 3, and quadrant 4, right? And remember, we can reach quadrant 4 by going backwards, and these would be negative angle measures. So we said always choose quadrant 1 and never choose quadrant 3. And so what we want to have is a function that gets me, I can do inverses of negative numbers and I can do inverses of positive numbers, but I remain a function. So if I try to use quadrant 1 and 4, that means that I'm using from 0 to pi over 2, because remember quadrant 1 is from 0 to pi over 2. And then going backwards, I would try to use from 0 to negative pi over 2, but that wouldn't be a function because I would have cosine positive in the first and the fourth quadrant. So the shortcut idea is wherever you see C from All Students Take Calculus, we're going to cross that out when we're dealing with the inverse cosine. So you notice if I highlight from pi over 2 to pi in my graph, that goes from here to here. And so now I have a function that goes from -1 to +1, and my calculator can give me a single answer. So in my original function from 0 to pi, if I would have cosine of theta is equal to y. Notice it's a capital C, and that means that 0 is less than or equal to theta is less than or equal to pi. Or in degrees, we would say, 0 is less than or equal to theta is less than or equal to 180. And then we can shorten that by saying it's in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So cosine of theta, when it's capital C, is defined for quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And so we're going to learn a little bit later that those are called principal values. So just got to remember, cosine, inverse cosine or capital C cosine is only defined when theta is in quadrant 1 or quadrant 2, so from 0 to pi. So let's take a look at sine and see what we can learn from that. So again, we're going to add in what our quadrants say. So the quadrants go from 0 to pi over 2 to pi to 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi. So coming up here, this is pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. And then I could continue that to the left. So this is negative pi over 2, negative pi, negative 3 pi over 2, and negative 2 pi, maximum of 1 and minimum of -1. And again, if it's going a little too fast for you, you can pause the video at any time. So sine begins a period at 0. So we're going to start at the origin. And sine is the one where we climb a mountain and then we dig a hole. And so that's going to look like this. But I have another beginning of a period at -2 pi. So that's going to climb a mountain and dig a hole. And we can keep rubber stamping that, and it would continue to oscillate forever and ever to the right and forever and ever to the left. And so again, if I go to do the inverse, we switch the x and the y, so that means x is equal to y times the sine, x is equal to the sine of y. And so it's the inverse sine of both sides that's going to get rid of that sine. And so that means that y equal to the inverse sine of x is going to be the inverse of this function here. So that -1 isn't talking about an exponent, it's talking about the inverse of a function. So what is x in this graph here becomes y in this graph here. And what's y in this graph becomes x in this graph. So this is -1, this is +1. We've got 2 pi, we have 3 pi over 2, we have pi over 2, negative pi over 2, negative pi, -3 pi over 2, and -2 pi. Okay, so again, just switching the x and the y values. So 2 pi comma 0 becomes 0 comma 2 pi. 3 pi over 2 negative 1 becomes negative 1 3 pi over 2. And then we get pi comma 0 becomes 0 comma pi. Pi over 2 comma 1 becomes 1 comma pi over 2. And then we got another one at 0, 0. So you can see we're doing the same zigzagging, just starting in a different place. So this one I get a point here, here, and here, just following the pattern. Okay. And again, this is a reflection. So if I take this graph and I reflect it across the line y equal x, I get this graph over here. So it's not a rotation, it's a reflection. So coming down here, we said always quadrant 1, never quadrant 3. And so then we need to see what's going to give me a little bit of positive and a little bit of negative. So quadrant 1 we said is from 0 to pi over 2. So from 0 to pi over 2 for my y values, that's going to be this portion of the graph. And if I continue that on to pi, that's not going to give me a function. I'm just going to have all positive values and it doesn't pass the vertical line test. So I want to be continuous, and so that means I'm going to continue it into the fourth quadrant. So that means we're looking at this portion of the original sine function. And so again, that shortcut says wherever you see the S for sine, we're going to cross that out because I don't want a quadrant where sine is positive and a quadrant where sine is positive. I want one where sine is positive and sine is negative. So that's why we have to choose 4 and not 2. So that means if I have capital S sine of theta equal to y, then that means that theta is going to be between negative pi over 2 and positive pi over 2. So you'll notice in the graph, it goes as low as negative pi over 2 and as high as positive pi over 2, which means negative 90 degrees is less than or equal to theta is less than or equal to 90 degrees, which is why you can never get an obtuse angle out of the inverse of sine. And then it's going to be defined in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. So that is the big piece of information we want to glean from this, is that it is defined in quadrants 1 and quadrant 4. So I'm going to pause this part 1 and we'll continue part 2 with tangent and then showing you some examples.